uncontrolled chaos here. I got into the pre-alpha test of Stars Reach, and I got some really cool information about the game. So, for those that don't know, this is a sci-fi space MMO made by Ralph Cosner, who was one of the main developers for Star Wars Galaxies, which was had a classless system. It had a really good crafting system and harvesting system, entertainers that could heal and buff and stuff like that. That was just really cool. Well, they're bringing that same mechanics from Star Wars Galaxies and putting it into Stars Reach, along with a lot more things like terrain manipulation tools and some interesting combat and jetpacks and grappling lines that you can hook into that give you sort of that Attack on Titan feel and things like that. There's no swinging, but it's early stages. Who knows what they can come out with. What was really interesting about this test and what I really enjoyed about this test is while in the test that they were having us do, which was test out the terrain manipulator and see if we could sort of crash or break things, stuff like that, using terrain manipulator, some slight resource gathering, and things like that. And when they run these tests, they, on the Discord server for the test server, they have an area for voice where they're in there and you're in there and the mics aren't muted for the people testing. So we can ask questions. We can interact with the developers. And the first thing I gotta say is, boy, are these developers passionate about this game. They love talking about it. They are laughing and joking around with us, and really cool thing, answering a lot of great questions. And I first want to go into what I experienced. What I experienced within this playtest is the fact that, okay, there's not much to character creation. You basically choose your race and that's it. But once again, remember, this is pre-alpha. The game is not finished. So what you're seeing graphically, animation-wise, and stuff like that is not the finished product. They are still working on it. But it has improved based on what they showed on their original trailers, which is good. They've improved the graphics and they're still working on the graphics, and they showed me some further down the line stuff that they're still working on with the lighting engine and stuff like that. But graphically, this game is turning out nice. And the way they're doing things on the back end server things makes it so that they can adjust things on the fly. They're able to take an area and turn it from being the regular green lush to a winter area. And we're not talking the zone, which, by the way, this does go off of the zone mechanics. So when you leave the planet, there will be a loading screen. When you go from one section of space to another section of space, there is going to be a loading screen. And the developers stated the reason they are doing this is so that they can update certain zones of an area and not have to take down the whole entire game with the infrastructure that they've built. They can literally, let's say, no one's, as they give an example, no one's going to a certain region of space or a certain planet. They can take that planet down or that zone down and put up a completely different one without having to fully take down the server. And I think that's really cool. Another thing they're able to do is they're able to affect areas of the game without taking down the servers. You're sitting there playing, they can modify and spawn things in the blink of an eye. They can affect the look of things, like going from a nice lush green area to a snow area. And they actually did this while we were testing in the last 15 minutes, but I'll get to that later. What's really cool is the terrain manipulator. You can dig holes and really sort of fine tune where you're pulling stuff based off of where you're aiming, your terrain manipulator tool. But they told me that there are right now 120 resources in the terrain you can dig out, which is amazing. This means a lot for crafting capabilities. And when I talked to them about crafting and stuff like that, I said what I really liked about Star Wars Galaxies is that crafters meant something. Crafting wasn't just a side thought of something to do. It's where a bulk of the weapons and gear comes from. And Stars Reach is going to do the same thing. So if you're looking to be a crafter and have a reason to be a crafter, Stars Reach is the game for you. And I think that's really nice. And that's really cool. Now, you'll notice that in a lot of the trailers that you're seeing right now, and even in this gameplay, that I'm flying around, and you'll see people flying around and stuff like that. That's a jetpack, and that has limited access based off of your stamina. So you can fall to your death just like you can in like games like No Man's Sky. If you ever watch my live streams, I've done that multiple times. That can happen. I asked them if there's going to be starships. They said, well, yes, of course. This is, Stars Reach. You're going to be going to multiple solar systems. Yes. So with that, they say they want to do customized starships where you choose different parts and stuff like that, but they can't guarantee it right now. It's sort of their wish list things to do for the game, but there will definitely be starships in the game, and I think that's really cool. And they're looking at doing a system where players create the missions and the quests. So you can have one player request, oh, I need these resources, can you go get these resources? Another player can say, oh, I need this items moved and put over to here for this person to sell or this person to buy. And so you're being the person to travel there. We even talked about, I mentioned that I'm big into being a bounty hunter in the game, and they say it could be possible that they put in the ability for a player to put a contract on another player who's been harassing them in sort of the PvP aspects of it, which they stated PvP is going to be an optional thing in the game. And I like that. So you get to choose if you want to do the PvP or not. And I think that's really cool. The fact that someone was actually heating up the ground and creating lava and hot ground and trees to catch on fire. And yes, I did take fire damage at some points in times while doing this is really cool. The other cool thing is you can freeze water and stuff like that, and you'll end up sliding around. I know that one of the developers, frozen area, and a bunch of the players were sitting there sliding around in a light area like they were sort of ice skating and having trouble getting to the land and stuff like that because their character was sliding all over the place. And everyone's laughing, including the developers, which I think, of course, is really, really fun and really cool. The other thing is that you can dig really, really deep, not just on ground. I also went out into space. I checked out the space stuff that they have because they put in these areas where you can teleport and be teleported to this base. That's a space station. And I asked the pure simple question, Is this a pre-made space station, or can players make this space stations? They said no, this space station they made using the tools that players will use to create bases. So players will be able to create space stations out in space. I'm so excited for that. I think that is awesome. The other thing that I really liked is they have these huge asteroids out there. You can take the terrain manipulation tool and you can dig into the asteroid. The great thing about this is they're not solid core asteroids. They got a thickness to them, but once you break through that thickness of the crust, you enter into this hollow area of the asteroid, and there will be a core there. That core there cannot be destroyed. That is invulnerable to destruction. Just not possible. And that's straight from the developers. And that's really cool. The other thing I like about the terrain manipulation tool is there's a management system there. So as you're gathering these resources, you're picking up a bunch of other junk that's not needed. And every so often you'll get this, inventory full, and then you have to hit the Q key to dump out the junk dirt that's not needed. The cool thing is wherever you're standing when you hit that Q key, it drops a pile of dirt on the ground and creates a mound. You actually drop dirt on the ground and change the ground itself. So you have to be careful. The funny thing is as we're sitting there talking, one of the developers who is digging a tunnel decided, needed to clean out his system so that he could dig more. He accidentally dumped the dirt behind him where he was tunneling and blocked himself in. And of course, we're all laughing about this and having a fun time. The fact that they're there and communicating with us is great because Dave, one of the other developers, he says, okay, we got 15 minutes left of test. I want to stress the servers some, do something a little bit different. I'm going to double the spawns of creatures on the planet, and instantly doubled the spawn. And so he wanted to push it and see what kind of lag we would get. I saw some lag, very little lag. It was fun. We were killing a bunch of creatures and getting killed ourselves, and people trying to res us and stuff like that, because yes, you can res other players and bring them back to life. And if you die, currently in the game, the way it's set up is if you haven't gotten to a save point, which is this little save beacons at these bases, you drop whatever you had collected before that save. Everything else is saved on your character. There is no death penalty there beyond that. So you don't lose experience, you don't get experience debt, you don't have to go back and get everything back off your body. You do have to go back and get this little graves thing to get the resources and the stuff that you had collected between your last save and when you died, but that's okay. So we're doing this, and Dave sits there and goes, we need to make this a little bit harder. He calls in a meteor strike in our areas, and we're watching meteors fall down and just slam into the ground, changing the terrain, causing some fires and stuff like that. And just the whole entire screen, as you can see, is shaking. I'm having a hard time battling. I'm just laughing and chatting with them and mentioning that I love that the screen shakes when an asteroid nearby hits the ground, or a meteor hits the ground. And that feels just really great, even in this early stage of the game. Then that's when they froze a section of the zone nearby where I was. All of a sudden, everything turned white in the blink of an eye. Everything turned white. The water froze, and that's where the players we're near the lake, we're going to cross the lake, and we're now sliding across the lake in a slippery area. The great thing about this is if you use the terrain manipulation tool to freeze the water, over time that will melt and will decrease in size. So it doesn't disappear right away. It decreases over time. Same with the fires you see. They go out over time, or they spread out if there's more force in there. And that's something that Rav Cosner brought up when they did earlier tests on testing how much foliage they could put out there. They mentioned people were lighting up and huge swaths of forest were catching on fire, and they were working on finding the perfect balance. They were working on, finding the perfect balance for leveling up skills and things like that earlier on. This main test was to focus on terrain manipulation and things like that. And that's where I mainly focused. I did some combat, I had to play around with it, but they also showed some combat afterwards and showed some footage that they had taken where as you increase your combat skills, you can do shots that are sort of like spread shots or triple shots, or a shot that they did where when it hit a certain area, it would burst out into a circle of multiple shots, creating a circle area spreading out. Or another shot where it would shoot and then it would hit one creature and then it would burst apart and hit multiple creatures in the area. And it was really cool and fun. And I was noticing that when I was shooting, that as long as my cursor stayed close to the target, the bullet would slightly curve and go towards the target. Or it's not a bullet, but it's an electrical sort of beam or ball going towards the target. I thought that was nice because I didn't have to precisely focus on the target. It felt a little bit different, and with it being technology, it's understandable that it could work that way. I can't wait to see what else they do with this, and when they add in more and allow us to build up actual walls and bases and add more creatures in and add in spaceships. I'm gonna continue doing more videos on this because I am extremely excited for this. If you're interested in the game, there's a link in the description to their website to where you can sign up to join into testing this, and also go wishlist it on Steam. They stated that they are good on money. They have investors, so they're not going to be asking for money from the player base or the community right away or at all. I think that's great. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe, and have a great day.